Everybody can go to lunch while we're doing that. And this is a logistical matter.
Everybody in agreement on that?
That works for me, Your Honor.
Okay, then that's how we'll proceed. Okay, at this point in time, are you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, we'll call Dalton Carr.
Please come forward.
If I may approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
And then Mr. Carr, let's move this a little closer to the court reporter, right? And then what are we marking this as?
But if you have a copy for me, that would be great, because we won't get it, but it's not what I want. Okay.
I'd like to mark Mr. Dalton's direct testimony as applicant exhibit 13, his supplemental testimony as applicant exhibit 14, and I've also prepared an errata of some minor changes to his testimony, typos, etc. I'd like to mark that as, with the bench's permission, as applicant exhibit 15, just for clarity of the record.
It shall be so marked.
I'll distribute it too.
Mr. Sensen, is the errata pertaining to the direct or the supplemental? Or both?
Yes, it says errata, Dalton Carr, direct testimony. It's not for the supplemental testimony.
And the errata is number 15?
Yes.
Okay.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Please proceed.
Actually, I have to swear in the witness.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the whole truth?
I do.
Okay, and now you may proceed, Mr. Stinson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Carr, would you please state your full name and address for the record?
Dalton Carr, business address is 310 4th Street Northeast, Suite 300 in Charlottesville, Virginia.
And by whom are you employed and in what position?
I'm employed by Apex Clean Energy as a development manager.
Now, I placed before you two exhibits to begin with. The first is marked applicant's exhibit 14, and the second is applicant's exhibit 15. I'm sorry, the first is applicant's exhibit 13, the second is applicant exhibit 14. Could you identify those two documents for me?
Could you clarify for me, Mr. Stinson?
Well, we marked the direct testimony as applicant's exhibit 14, and the supplemental testimony as applicant's exhibit 15.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I said that backwards. 13 and 14 are the direct and supplemental.
Yes. I can
And you have those before you?
Yes.
And was that testimony prepared by you or under your direct supervision?
Yes, it was.
And do you have any corrections to that testimony this morning?
Yes.
And I've also marked as applicant's exhibit 15 what is captioned errata, Dalton Carr direct testimony. Your Honor, would you like to accept this as the errata, or would you like for Mr. Carr to go through the testimony and explain what those changes are?
Well, what would be helpful for the parties? I mean, either way, we can quickly do it, or we can just include this as an exhibit. Do the parties have a preference?
I would just as soon use the exhibit rather than go through everything.
I
for the
would
second time.
agree. Okay, let's do that. I think we'll just admit this as an exhibit.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Carr, if I were to ask you the same questions today in the direct and supplemental testimony, would your answers as corrected by the errata be the same?
Yes, they would.
And are those answers true and accurate to the best of your ability,
Yes.
to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
At this point, Your Honor, I would tender applicants exhibit 13 through 15 for admission into the record subject to cross, and tender Mr. Carr for cross-examination.
Okay, we'll admit those after cross, and I don't know what order you would like to do cross and Mr. Van Clay, would you like to go first? Or
Sure, Your Honor.
That
Be
would
happy
probably
to.
make the most sense.
Sure. Morning, Mr. Carr.
Good morning.
Why don't you talk a little bit about your experience that may be relevant to this case. How long have you been working for Republic Wind?
I've been working for Apex Clean Energy for just over 4 years. I've been involved in the development of Republic Wind for that full tenure.
How many years again?
4 years.
4 years. And during that 4 years with Apex Clean Energy, you have worked for Republic Wind during that entire period of time?
That's correct.
Is Republic Wind a subsidiary of Apex Clean Energy?
Republic Wind is wholly owned by Apex Clean Energy.
When did Republic Wind LLC come into existence?
I don't have that figure in front of me. However, the project has been around for around 10 years.
By project, you mean the wind turbine project that is the subject of the application before the board?
Development for this specific project, Republic Wind LLC, yes.
Did Republic Wind LLC come into existence about the time that you started working for Republic Wind LLC?
No.
Pardon?
No.
No? Okay. How long before you started working for Republic Wind LLC, approximately, did it come into existence?
Again, I don't have that specific number in front of me. However, I believe it's been around for about 10 years. So if we take my 4-year tenure away from that, I would guess somewhere around 6.
Prior to the time that you started working for Republic Wind, was Republic Wind at any time prior to that owned by a different company besides Apex?
Yes.
Okay, so Apex purchased Republic Wind LLC.
That's correct.
Okay. And along with purchasing Republic Wind, Apex also purchased the rights to develop this project.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. Do you know who was developing the project prior to the time that Republic Wind was sold to Apex?
To my knowledge, the prior developer was a company called Nordex.
Is that the same Nordex that manufactures turbines?
Now, I'm not sure if this was a subsidiary of Nordex with a specific development arm. However, it is the same name.
I presume that you're familiar with the application in this case?
Yes.
And some of the studies that are included in the application were conducted by Republic Wind prior to the time that Apex purchased that company?
Yes, I would believe so.
So for example, the wildlife surveys that were done in 2011 and 2012 were not conducted under the supervision of Apex, correct?
To my knowledge, there were some studies that were performed prior to the purchase of the project by Apex. However, I'm not sure exactly which studies those were.
Does Republic Wind intend to construct this project itself if it receives a certificate?
Republic Wind plans to manage the construction of this project.
Does Republic Wind intend to operate this project after construction is finished?
Apex Clean Energy generally has an operations arm internal to the company. However, that would be a decision made at a later stage.
So at this point, you don't know whether Apex or a subsidiary of Apex is going to operate this facility?
Again, at this point in the process, the project is essentially where it needs to be. However, as far as determining an operations management procedure for the future, that determination has not been made.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but could you ask him to please speak up and project his voice?
Better?
Better, thank you.
The design of the project as it currently stands for consideration by the board is not the first design that has been prepared for this project, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Throughout the preparation of the application and then some amended applications, there have been a number of different layouts for the turbines that have been designed by Republic Wind.
That's correct.
Approximately how many redesigns has this project gone through?
The proposed layout included in the OPSB application as amended is layout number 66.
Now, why have there been 66 different layouts for this project rather than just one?
During the development for a project such as this, layouts are responsive to different studies that we perform, and also pursuant to those turbine models considered.
So have there been particular issues that Republic Wind has been trying to work around in order to address them through different layouts?
Yeah, Mr. Carr, before you respond, we're still having trouble hearing you, so let's move the mic close to you, so pick it up and move it closer.
Just pick the whole thing up and just put it in front of you. Yeah, and let's do that because we just have a lot of people who can't.
Sure.
Okay.
So the microphone itself has been close to, I guess what I'm intending not to do is to breathe into it. So I have it beside my mouth. I'm sure this piece itself
I
doesn't help.
think people will be okay if they hear you breathing into it. They want to hear you.
If that's what
They
the crowd
really
wants.
want to hear you. Yes.
Here, please.
Okay, and you may have to repeat the question.
Yeah, could we have it reread because I've forgotten it?
Question, so have there been particular issues that Republic Wind has been trying to work around in order to address them through different layouts?
In response to this question, I referred to the application itself as a reference for those impacts discussed. regarding studies we've completed for the project. However, as you know, with 66 layouts, these are responsive not only to impacts identified, but a number of other issues that come up.
All right, so which issues has Republic Wind been trying to address through changing the layouts?
Again, I would refer to the application itself as an open discussion of those issues approached and the subject matter areas in which the OPSB requests information and study.
All right, well, you need to answer the question. I've asked you to identify those issues. If they're in the application, that's fine, but I need you to list those issues, please.
I'm not sure I can provide a comprehensive list of those issues that's inclusive of every issue that we consider for these projects. But the application itself includes all of those studies. That would be identification tool for what we are using to design the project itself, the turbine locations.
All right, well, just provide me with a list of the issues that you can remember off the cuff.
Objection, Your Honor, I believe he's answered the question.
Okay, Mr. Carr, what we're gonna do, can you just give us a generic list of whatever you may remember? I'm overruling that objection.
Well, like, again, the objection goes back to that there's 56 different iterations of this, so it's
Right, and I think Mr. Van Clay is
Overrun
not
question.
at wanting every single item on that list, just whatever generally that you can remember. I think that would be fine. I think Mr. Van Clay's indicated a general list would be fine. So if you can remember 5 things, that would be fine.
Certainly. So some of the surveys that have guided our facilities layouts that have arrived us at this layout 66 that was proposed in the amended application. I can list a few. One would be the shadow flicker report. One would be the noise impact assessment, the ecological assessment, some of the environmental and wildlife surveys over the years.
With regard to ecological issues that have resulted in layout changes, can you generally describe what those ecological issues have been?
I'm going to object again, Your Honor, on the basis that this is going through 56 different iterations of changes to applications for whatever reasons, and it's putting Mr. Carr in a position where he can't answer it, unless there's more specific. If Mr. Van Clay has a specific question about a change or an iteration to the layout, maybe that'd be more appropriate than going back through 56 of them.
Your Honor, I asked him just generally to tell me what those issues are, and without him answering the question, I don't know what specifics I can ask him about.
Okay, Mr. Carr, are you able to answer that question at all? I'm overruling the objection for now. Let's see where this goes.
I can offer a general overview of these studies that were performed. However, regarding the specifics and the findings of those studies, I will defer to witness Kurlinger, who will testify later.
Was Mr. Kurlinger involved in layout changes?
No.
Okay, so I'm asking you about what issues caused you to redesign the layout for the facility. And with regard to ecological issues, I'm asking you to generally tell me the nature of those ecological issues that resulted in a redesign of the layout.
I'm going to renew the objection too on the basis of time. I believe the testimony thus far, and foundation, the testimony thus far is that this project has been in some sort of development for the past 10 years. If we have some kind of a temporal restriction on what Mr. Carr is going to be telling us, I think that helps for the record.
Mr. Carr has indicated that he's familiar with the application. I think he can answer this question, and if there's something that occurred prior to the time he was involved, then he can indicate that. But we at least have the right to ask him why these redesigns occurred. Council is trying to prevent us from obtaining that information through these objections, but at this point, I'm making the questions as specific as I can, given the limited amount of information the witness has provided me.
Okay.
And council is not trying
Okay,
to,
thank you, Mr. Sensen. Give me a moment. Okay, I'm going to ask the witness some questions, and we'll see if that clears up your objections. Mr. Carr, can you give us a high-level overview of the ecological conditions that prompted some of these layout changes?
I'm sorry, Rob, I'm going to object to that also, because it's inferring certain changes from what period of time? I can't get my arms around what's being asked as far as this 10-year period. And there's some amorphous concept of changes over that period. I'm going to make the record clear and have a question presented that Mr. Carr can answer.
Okay, thank you. Then your objection will be noted. Mr. Carr, to the extent you may understand my question, can you please provide an answer? And we can have the question run back.
Would you mind reading the question back for me?
Yes. Carol, will you please? Thank you.
Question, Mr. Carr, can you give us a high-level overview of the ecological conditions that prompted some of these layout changes?
Some of the work we performed to identify impacts resulting from our proposed turbine layouts, facilities layouts over time, were the ecological assessment, the diurnal bird raptor migration survey, the raptor nest survey, the bald eagle survey, the passerine migration survey, and a number of others regarding bats. These surveys helped us to identify species and their locations. And we used this information to coordinate with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and U.S. Fish and Wildlife to determine buffers for those species and to determine curtailment regimes for those species. These studies and this consultation with these federal and state agencies have helped us to guide both the project boundary itself, but of course where facilities would land.
In fact, at the time that the wildlife surveys for birds were done for the Republic Wind project, the project area looked different than it looks in the current application, correct?
Again, as to foundation, as to what time period we're talking for what studies.
I just identified the time period as 2011, 2012, and I identified the studies as the bird studies.
Does that answer?
If Mr. Carr can answer with that clarification.
The project boundary has changed. It has been reduced in size.
Did Republic Wind obtain information about eagle nests that led to the company redesigning the layout of the project?
To my knowledge, the location of the eagle nests, as uncovered in the review and studies that we have performed, have guided reductions to the project boundary.
What information did Republic Wind discover about those eagle nests that led to the redesign of the facility?
On this note, regarding specific consultation with the U.S. Wildlife, or U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but then also Ohio Department of Natural Resources. I would defer to witness Curlinger to speak on specific mitigation measures and compliance measures that we've undertaken. However, generally speaking, the project has been modified. The facilities locations have been modified to accommodate buffers and curtailment regimes as proposed by these agencies.
Well, Mr. Kurlinger wasn't working for Republic Wind on this project in 2011, 2012, was he?
No.
Okay.
However, to that end, we would be relying on his expertise and knowledge of certain agency requirements.
Yeah, I'm not asking you about the agency requirements. I'm asking about why you redesigned the facility as a result of information you found out about eagle nests. So I'm asking about events that occurred back at that time when you redesigned the facility in order to address that issue. So my question to you is, first of all, did you find, or did Republic Wind find some eagle nests that led to its redevelopment of the layout of the facility?
I'm generally aware the location of eagle nests were one of the many factors used in determining where our facilities would be located in each of these layout changes.
After 2012, did Republic find any eagle nests in the project area that it was not aware of in 2012?
I'm generally aware that consultation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and ODNR continued beyond 2012, where any updates to potential locations were disclosed and reviewed by those agencies.
Okay, going back to the question I actually asked, did Republic Wind become aware of any eagle nests after 2012 that it was not aware of in 2012 in the project area?
I'm generally aware of a testimony from Mr. Shieldcastle, wherein it is alleged that there is an eagle location within the project boundary, if that's what your question is referring to. We have confirmed the location of this eagle nest over the past several days, but have also confirmed that any turbine locations cited for the project fall outside of what is called the half-mean internest distance, which has been proposed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This would indicate that the proposed turbine locations fall outside of essentially the recommended buffer for this nest.
Other than that nest, is Republic Wind aware of any other eagle nests inside of the project area?
On this note, I would defer to the application and any agency correspondence that you may be aware of.
I'm asking you the question. You need to answer the question. Do you know of any other eagle nests besides the one you just identified inside the project area?
I'm not generally aware of another eagle nest.
You're not generally aware of another eagle nest? What does generally mean?
As project manager for Republic Wind, I'm tasked with overseeing the studies that are performed specifically regarding the submission of the Ohio Power Siting Board application. Do understand that some of the wildlife and environmental studies that were performed were before my time, in that my preparation of the application itself was excluding some of that initial wildlife work and work that may have been performed beyond 2012. So generally speaking, to my knowledge of the application, I'm not aware of another eagle nest within the project boundary aside from that which has been alleged and later confirmed in Mr. Shieldcastle's testimony.
Did Republic Wind know about the eagle nest that Mr. Shieldcastle described in his testimony prior to the time that Mr. Shieldcastle filed his testimony?
No.
What specifically did Republic Wind do to redesign its layout in order to address eagle issues?
As one of the many factors of those issues and impacts that will impact where we can site our facilities. An eagle's nest, for example, would impose the buffer recommended by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. The half-mean internest distance, which in Republic's case is 1.17 miles. Now that distance would be one of the inputs for Republic's facilities layout, wherein no turbines could appear within that range of an identified nest.
So did you have to move some of the turbine locations in order to provide a distance of 1.17 miles between the nearest turbine and the eagle nest?
Objection, or just clarification with respect to which nest?
Any eagle nest.
Do understand that with many, if not most of these turbine layouts, it is a redesign. And so it's not so much that you are moving one turbine location, so much as the entire facility's layout is re-optimized given the buildable area that we have for each turbine location. And so if we have a new buffer regarding a new nest location, that buffer is one of the inputs for where these turbines may land. However, it is not so much a nudging of existing turbines, so much as it is a redesign of where turbines may land given new buffers.
Did Republic Wind or its consultants discover any Indiana bats in the project area at any time?
I'm aware of one Indiana bat nest, I believe it's called a roost tree, that was initially internal to the project boundary. The project size was reduced, the turbine and facilities layout was amended, and this was to account for a proposed buffer and curtailment regime from or in consultation with ODNR, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
And where did that Indiana bat roost reside?
I'm not at liberty to disclose the exact location of that roost, given it's an endangered animal. And so my disclosure here would be in violation of U.S. Fish and ODNR code. However, that nest is now outside of the project boundary.
All right. Well, generally speaking, what area, give me a general description of the area without violating your responsibility to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
The identified Indiana bat roost is north and central to the project boundary.